What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and hope everyone's having a great weekend so far. It's Sunday afternoon here. It's snowing outside. It's cold. I thought it'd be a great time to come in here, step away for a bit, and talk some more about some Edgar Allan Poe. Today, I'm going to be talking about the second story in the month of Poe read along, which has been going on over on my Discord server. We have 2 stories left to close out the rest of January. So if you're interested in joining in on those, the link to the Discord will be down in the description. But for today, the second story, we're going to be talking about the Masque of the Red Death. This one was an interesting story, a bit more straightforward than the Fall of the House of Usher. But there will be full spoilers for the story going forward for the rest of the video. If you haven't read it, go check it out. I'm sure you can find it for free online, or there might be some free stuff on Kindle Unlimited regarding Poe. But this one, it's a very short story. In the collection I have back here, it was only like 3.5 pages. Not very long, but like I said, pretty straightforward. So I'm going to do sort of a summary and synopsis of the story, and then I'll get into sort of more details about what I thought was going on and whatnot. So the story starts out, there is this, basically a pandemic. There's this disease going around, this horrible disease, just wiping out the population, just devastating the landscape. It's known as the Red Death. You get sick, you get dizzy and nauseous, and then you basically start to bleed out of your pores, causing a red mask on your face with the blood coming down, and you die pretty quickly, like within 30 minutes or so. So all that is going on, devastating the population, and sort of our main character, I guess you could say, is Prince Prospero, and I'll talk more on him and his name in a little bit. But he is sort of the leader or the ruler of this kingdom or this area, and he decides to basically gather up his entourage, all of his friends, and they're going to head off, seclude themselves, basically quarantine themselves in this abbey away from the rest of the population, and let the population basically deal with it on their own. And they're going to go out and be in this nice castle, this abbey, with all these supplies, food, and whatnot, and they're just going to basically party until the Red Death takes care of itself and sort of dwindles away, where they can come back again. So we get to this abbey, this mansion, this castle, whatever it is, and we go into this big party scene, this masquerade ball, if you will. And it's interesting. There's 7 different rooms where the party is being held, and each one is a different color room. There's like blue, green, red, yellow, black, and so on. And those colors have an importance we'll talk about. But the masquerade's going on, and every hour there's this clock in the black room that strikes. It tolls every hour, and when it does that, all of the partygoers, they sort of stop. The musicians stop playing music. The people waltzing, they stop waltzing. The revelers, the partygoers, they just sort of stop, and everyone listens to this bell chime, this clock chime, and it's very disheartening. It's concerning. It makes everyone feel uneasy every time it happens. And it'll happen, and then they're like, okay, the next time it happens, it won't bother me as much. But it rings again, and it gives everyone the same feeling, sort of this chill, this disheartening, uneasy feeling just sort of seeps into everybody once that bell chimes. But the party goes on, and we finally get to midnight. The bell chimes for midnight, and there's this tall, gaunt, mysterious sort of partygoer, this reveler that comes through, sort of walking through the crowd. He's dressed in sort of, almost looks like the Grim Reaper, basically, is how I interpreted it. But he's wearing a masquerade mask, this ball mask that looks like a red mask, like the Red Death. This really infuriates the prince, sort of this partygoer poking fun at this disease that's going around killing everybody. The prince wants everyone to sort of grab this guy, hold him down so they can unmask him, find out who it is. No one wants to get close, so the prince chases him down. Once the prince finally catches up to him, the prince dies. Everyone sort of freaks out that the prince is dead, and they try to capture this partygoer, this reveler, and everyone else dies as well, and that's sort of the end to the story. All right, so let's break it down. Let's dive a bit deeper into the story and maybe give you my thoughts on what I think everything sort of means. I want to start out with Prince Prospero and the partygoer, the reveler, who is masquerading as the Red Death at the end of the story. And again, sort of sidetrack, the title of the story, The Masque of the Red Death, has a double meaning here, just like the fall of the House of Usher had a double meaning for that story. So I'm curious if all of Poe's titles have double meanings, or if it's just a coincidence that the first two I've ever read have double meanings. But the Masque of the Red Death is literally, your face bleeds and turns red like a mask when this death comes upon you. And then also this person masquerading as the Red Death at the masquerade party, the ball, the double meaning again. But Prince Prospero and this reveler who's masquerading as the Red Death, the story at first glance sort of sets you up that Prince Prospero is our hero. He's the one who's fighting down this villain, and the reveler, the partygoer, is the villain. But actually, I think it's different. I think Prince Prospero is the true villain of the story. It tells you at the beginning he's sort of this leader, this king, basically, of this area, and he's responsible for this group of people, this population in his kingdom, if you will. And he basically just abandons them all. He takes all of his friends, all of his buddies, his entourage, and he goes to flee and seclude himself and take care of himself and his friends, and just leaves all of his subjects, all the people who he is supposed to be protecting and safeguarding against. He just leaves them to their own devices, lets them live or die. He doesn't care. And already it says that half of his population was already gone before he even decided to flee. So he was doing absolutely nothing to do anything to help and save his people. He was very selfish and only cared about him and his friends. And he was going to go hide and basically let it all blow over. And once the disease ran its course, he was going to come back and basically be in charge of nothing really at that point, because everyone would be dead other than his buddies he took with him. So I think he's the true villain. He was selfish, didn't care about his people, and left them basically to die, and didn't do anything in his power, the power that he had, to help them in any way, shape, or form. He fled to the mountains with his friends to go party, is basically what he did. Also, I want to touch on his name, Prince Prospero. To me, that is a play on prosper or prosperity. And the whole story is about death, in my opinion. I think it's pretty straightforward that it is about death. And I think it's telling his name, Prospero, prosper, prosperity, that it doesn't matter how rich or prosperous or well off or high and mighty you might be. Death comes for us all the same, whether you're a lowly street urchin up to this high, prosperous prince. It doesn't matter. Death is coming for us all in the end, and there's nothing you can do. It doesn't matter what you've done in life. Death is coming for you either way, whether you're the poorest person or the richest person. So I think his name was sort of a play on that, showing that it doesn't matter how prosperous he is, how high and mighty this prince is. Death came for him the same way it did for everyone else. So I think the play on his name, and then that he was more so the true villain than death. Death is unbiased. He doesn't care. It's not good or evil. It doesn't discriminate against who it claims. It comes for everybody. So that was that. And then the party itself, it talked about, was in these different rooms, these 7 different colored rooms. And it made a point to say that in lots of other buildings, they would sort of open the doors to all these rooms, sort of fold them back, and it would be long, like one long ballroom. You could see from one end of one room all the way to the end of the other room where all the party was. That wasn't the case here. You could only see one room at a time here. So you go into a room, you have to turn the corner to see the next room, and then turn the corner to see the next room, and so on to get from room 1 to room number 7. And also each room was a different color. The decorations in the room would be a certain color, and then outside each room there would be a window with this fire blazing outside that would shine through the stained glass, and that glass would reflect that color into the room. It started out with blue. I don't remember the exact order, but blue was first, and then it would go on to red, yellow, green, whatever it was, but the final room was black. So I think that the rooms and their colors corresponded to basically your life. Blue is the first room where you start out, where you're being born, and it leads all the way to the black room, which represents death, which is also where that clock that I talked about was chiming from, sort of the for whom the bell tolls, the impending clock ticking away, your death, counting down the hours and minutes and seconds of your life. We're all only promised a certain finite amount of time, and counting down the years, months, weeks, days, minutes, hours, seconds, all the way down to the end. It sort of was that constant reminder that, death is coming for you. You're older now this hour than you were the last time the bell tolled. Every hour that bell tolls, you're getting closer and closer and closer to death. I think that was just a sort of reminder that death is looming for everybody. It can come at any moment, regardless of what you're doing or how well off you are or how poor off you are. So that clock was there in that final room, the death room, and no one really wanted to go in that room during the party. Everyone sort of shied away from it. But the way the rooms were laid out, start with blue. Blue represents birth, and you couldn't see from one room, you couldn't see from one room to the end. Just like in life, you can't see how your life is going to play out. You can't see death coming at the end. It could be, you turn the corner, death could be around any corner at any point in time. I think that's what that represented as well. The colors, sort of your life cycle. Blue start out where you're being born, and then you eventually get to black, which is death, and not being able to see the rooms. You can't see what's coming forward. You don't know what lies ahead in your road of life. I really like that. And then finally, and this is sort of pretty simple, I think, that the partygoer, the reveler, who was masquerading as the Red Death, was literally death itself. Death came to this party. At one point, once the prince starts to chase this entity, this reveler, they get to the black room, and the prince dies, and the clothes that the partygoer is wearing, they sort of fall to the floor, and there's no body inside. Reminds sort of like Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope when he gets cut and the clothes just fall down. There was no one inside. It was just death itself, this entity. Death doesn't have a physical form. It can manifest in many different ways. And the prince didn't die until he actually crossed the threshold into the black room, into death. And then all the partygoers, once they crossed that threshold as well, they all succumbed and died as well. So really, simply, it's pretty much a story about death, how death comes for everybody, regardless whether it's this looming death, this disease, which the Red Death here, or it could be any number of things. You don't know when it's coming. There's always that ticking clock, that ticking away your life, counting down how many seconds you have left until, it's the end. So I really enjoyed this story. It's hard to rate these. I don't really know. If I were to do it out of 10, I think I'd like this one just a bit more than The Fall of the House of Usher. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. It was quick. It was pretty simple and to the point. At least I thought so. But I still really enjoyed it. Those gothic vibes. I really liked the description of the party, what was going on, and the sort of, I don't know the word for it, how death sort of materialized at the party. It came for them, even though they were trying to seclude themselves, quarantine themselves. It didn't matter. Death found a way to sneak in and claim what it wanted to claim when it wanted to claim it. So that's sort of my rambling thoughts about The Masque of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. This was story number 2 for the month of Poe Read Along. Starting today and for this coming week, we're going to be reading The Pit and the Pendulum as story number 3 for the month of Poe. So if you haven't read it and you'd like to join in, like I said, the link to the Discord's down in the description. Would love to have you come in, join in, give your thoughts on these stories as well. I don't know how long it is. I think it's maybe 5-6 pages or so. Still not a very long story. But that's all I have for you guys today. Have you read The Masque of the Red Death? If you have, do you agree with how I interpreted the story? Do you have a different interpretation? Let me know down in the comments. But that's all I have for you guys today. So thank you for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.